Cheap electricity, affordable electricity rate, it's not the only decisive factor when you are going to deploy or manage Bitcoin mining location. Every miner in data center has a story to tell on how it got there. You agree on a price, you pay the miners, congratulations. You have the miners, they are yours, but they are still sitting in the supplier's warehouse. Math inside customs does not work like math everywhere else. It has to be done between different time zones, different cultures, and different languages, and sometimes different currencies too. At the end, a mining farm has way much more in common with an industrial energy project than with a tech startup. Hello, it's nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. As you may notice, I am working at EMCD, a Bitcoin mining pool. But today, I won't be addressing any type of mining topics. My name is Nicolás Rincón. I am originally from Colombia. I work as a business development manager at EMCD. And I've had experience in mining since 2023. I have on-site experience in Paraguay, Brazil, and Ethiopia. And I've also remotely monitored locations in the Middle East and Argentina. And today, I would like to give the spotlight to the most things that people do not see when we're mining Bitcoin. So, what most people tend to see, and the illusion of what Bitcoin mining is you just plug in the miners. There's a cheap or an affordable electricity rate. Hash rate starts coming online. Reward starts flowing into the pool. And to some extent, thank you to amazing hosting companies offering 24-hour deployment products, it's just that. But every miner in the data center has a story to tell on how it got there. So, on my perspective, what Bitcoin mining really is, or where Bitcoin mining really starts, is from the logistics. You have to choose between international roads, which is the best one for you. Custom clearance process. It needs to be clean. It needs to be completely smooth if you want to have a good operation on site. The infrastructure. Usually the infrastructure is being told to us that it has to run the miners as smoothly as possible, but in reality, it has also to protect all the equipment inside. Inland transport is as difficult and as challenging as the international one. Monitoring each and every step of this flow is very important. And the skills to coordinate all the human parties involved is also imperative, because you are managing people across cultures and across languages. So in reality, at the end of the day, the hash rate coming online is the only last feasible step of a whole process. So logistics, customs, and then the human coordination. Import taxes is one of the most sensitive variables you have to take into account when either developing or managing a Bitcoin mining site. And it's usually ignored. And throughout the world, Bitcoin mining is largely unregulated. So this leaves us exposed to policy changes, especially the ones in import. Incorrect paperwork will give you a massive headache. And you have to prepare also your bank account, because every mistake along the way, you're going to pay it dearly if you don't do it the correct way. At this moment, you have one very important decision to take. Are you going to use Airfreight or seafreight? There's not a best option. It just depends on the business model you have built for your farm. So seafreight, it will sink your transport costs, but the lead time is much larger. The Airfreight is a bit more expensive, but if you need your miners going online as soon as possible, this is the one you should use. Custom delays are not only done because of incorrect paperwork. It is as sensible and as innocent as a holiday. A holiday might push back your timeline even 5 days because math inside customs does not work like math everywhere else. For example, in a holiday, in customs, the custom clearance teams does not work, but that doesn't mean that the goods stop flowing into the country. So this means if some goods that have priority over your miners in customs arrive on that holiday, your deadline will be pushed 3 to 4 days or even more. And this is something that most of the facilities have to endure because most of the ASIC sourcing is done overseas. So the human coordination behind all this process is as important as the hash rate you see online. And in the following, I'm going to describe step by step how you should coordinate and which parties you have to coordinate in order to have a smooth operation. So the first step is just between the company and the suppliers. You agree on a price, you pay the miners, congratulations. You have the miners, they are yours, but they are still sitting in the supplier's warehouse. So the next step is connecting the supplier and the freight forwarder. And they have to start coordinating. Is the freight forwarder going to pick up the cargo, or is the supplier going to ship the cargo to the warehouse of the freight forwarder? At the same time, the company has to coordinate with the freight forwarder. They have to coordinate which is going to be the departure date, or which route is the most efficient one to get to the location. Do I want to save a few bucks for every miner I'm shipping and take a longer route? Is this route going to be with commercial flights or cargo flights? All of these are things you have to take into account when you are developing a Bitcoin mining facility. The next step of this process is coordinating between the freight forwarder and the custom clearance agent on the arrival date. And in this part, it's very sensible that they transfer all the correct documentation for the nationalization of the miners in that specific country. But at the same time, while you are coordinating that, you have to coordinate with your on-site team of the location. Which miners are you sending? Which models? Do you have to make any changes on the infrastructure? Are they Avalons? Are they Watts miners? Are there Bitmain miners? Is it a one-phase miner? Is it a three-phase miner? All of this has to be clear, so there's not any delays on the miners going online. The next step, and it's one of the most challenging ones and the most overlooked one, is domestic transport. Domestic transport has to be mostly done in local language, local currency, and with local people. So you have to start coordinating the custom clearance agent and the local transporter for the release date, so the miners are picked up at the airport or at the port. And at the same time, that same day, you have to coordinate between the local transporter and the on-site team, because they have to be ready to receive the cargo. The last step of this process is the coordination between the executive team of the company and the on-site team. Are all the miners accounted for? Are all the serial numbers matching the ones you bought from China or the US? Which stratums have to be configured? How many customers came in that batch? All of that has to be transparently and clearly transmitted to the on-site team. And all of the previous flow that I just explained has to be done between different time zones, different cultures, and different languages, and sometimes different currencies too. A miner stuck in customs is a miner that produces absolutely no Bitcoin. But that's not all. A miner stuck in customs produces an exponential rate of expenses that is like a snowball. It just keeps growing. And it's not only monetary expenses where you're paying here, it's also the credibility of your company to be able to manage the operation. Because if you don't hold the timelines you're giving, people are going to start having doubts about it. As being said before, the amount of coordination is massive. And in this industry, we've seen that most companies are remote first. So clear processes, clear communication, and a certain degree of flexibility from all the workers of the company, from the CEO all the way up to the operators on site, is a must. You might have a very chill Tuesday if everything is working, but then if cargo is arriving at 10 p.m. on a Friday, you should be okay with this kind of timetables, because it's how it works. The part of inland transportation, as said before, it's as challenging as the international one. Usually, many mining facilities are located in remote areas. And this is a synonym for poorly maintained roads, some of them not even paved. So here you have to take major decisions. Am I going to transport just with one big truck to save costs? But then what happens if the trucks get stuck in the mud? Am I going to be able to take it out if it's too heavy? Okay, no, then let's go for 2 little trucks to transport the miners to the remote location. Then you have to also take into account, are these guys equipped with everything if they have a flat tire? How fast can I react if the miners get stranded in the middle of nowhere? And how can I pick them up later? This is also for the infrastructure inside of the location. The transformers have to be also maintained, and if they are damaged, you have to have a team either to pick it up and to bring it to a repair center, or you have to have a team that's willing to go at any time to the remote location to fix the transformer. Here you might think, okay, then I'll have just things in stock. But that's just having capital sitting down. I mean, it might not be the best solution to have just a transformer on stock. It's better to have the process of repairing very, very, very fast the transformer. The medium voltage infrastructure, you have to have a stock for this, for the breakers, the cables. All of this you have to take into account when you are working at a remote location or at any location. The cooling systems. The cooling systems is the ones that extend the lifespan of your miners. Here, you have to think several things. Is the location too humid? So I have to fight corrosion. Or is the location too dry? Then how do I manage to put a bit of humidity into the location so I can extend the lifespan of the thermal paste inside the chips of the miner? Do I need a water source nearby? If yes, have you tested the water? Because if the water is, for example, too salty, you will definitely notice this in a few months, especially in your water walls. You should never trust just having one internet provider. You should have always at least 2. And if you see that you are still having a bit of internet trouble at the location, you might even just have the backup of the backup with a few Starlinks. And last but not least, security. It doesn't matter where you're operating, you have to think in all the variables that might appear in that location. It's better to be safe than sorry. That at the end, a mining farm has way much more in common with an industrial energy project than with a tech startup. So finally, going online. This is where the pretty dashboards come in handy, where you have several features to manage your miners. Hash rate starts pumping up. Revenue starts flowing into the pool account. Looks good. But like said before, months of coordination, weeks of coordination for the transport, a financial risk on every corner and in every decision that you're making. The infrastructure deployment, you have to test it, deploy it, and retest it so the miners are always online. And this is a project that is repeated across the industry. Like, you have to test, deploy, and retest everything. And the technical execution. Without any technical execution, it's impossible to bring a location alive. Then, this is more commonly known, after deployment, it's crucial to maintain a stable uptime. You have to have also clarity on how are you managing the repairs. Are you going to do it yourself on site? Are you going to give it to a third party? What are you going to keep in stock? Fans, control boards, what makes sense? Be sure you know if there's any curtailment policy that you need to abide to when you are mining, so it doesn't catch you by surprise. The grid stability is one of the most important things that are overlooked. Grid stability, for example, in an industrial location is much more volatile than in a remote location. Why? Because if I am mining in an industrial location, if all of a sudden a factory nearby shuts down, the peak on electricity, the peak of tension, will affect my miners. So do I have everything to protect my miners? How much of the security steps do I have? How many breakers do I have until that peak reaches my miners? Remote monitoring, if you are overseas, is a must. You have to have live data so you can take decisions at the most important moment. And the spare parts that you're going to have on site, especially for the medium tension works. Because that's going to be capital just sitting idle there. Have all of these policies pretty clear according to the business model that you are developing in your farm. In mining, consistent operations matter way much more than short periods of peak performance. And the final keynote is cheap electricity or affordable electricity rate. It's not the only decisive factor when you are going to deploy or manage Bitcoin mining location. Logistic defines timelines, and timelines define the credibility. Uptime depends only on operational excellence. Infrastructure quality matters. And mining is way much more physical than many Bitcoiners can imagine. So the next time you see miners hashing online, remember that it was made possible because of hundreds of operational decisions. Thank you for having me. And if you want to further discuss these topics, we have a booth here at the venue. Please come by. We'll be more than happy to address all the questions.